I would like to talk about something that is affecting, has affected, or will affect a lot of us, actually, all of us, probably at some point in our lives, and that is depression. I spent about nearly half of my life being depressed. And when I got to the deepest depression you can imagine, it was at that point that I decided to pull myself up by the bootstraps and change. It was something in me that said, hey, you're stronger, you're better, you're more powerful than this. And let me tell you guys what I did. It's all natural. It worked for me. I've shared it with other people who took it and applied it, and it worked for them. And I'm sure that if you guys are dealing with depression and you take it and use it, it will help you to either fight or totally overcome depression. Now, I am in no way, shape, or form advising or telling anyone who is taking medication for depression to not take your medication. I'm simply giving advice and tools and tips and explanations as to how these natural tips helped me and helped others that I've shared it with, and it can still help those of us who are taking medication, because again, this is all natural. All you need is the will and the desire to do it, and you will get through it. I like that. Another catchphrase, huh? Okay, all right. The first thing we need to do is make the commitment. This is a lifestyle change when it's all said and done, because even when we come out of our state of depression, especially those of us who are empaths, there will be situations and things and people and environments that we have to be in, and we can soak that up and it can get us going back into that state once again. But if we apply these tips and stick with them and use them over and over, it will help us tremendously to stay above the fray. So again, the first step we need to do is, if we are going to apply these tips, is to make the commitment today to do it. To do it. Just do it. The first step to battling and overcoming depression is to detoxify the body. Now, there are many reasons as to what could spark depression or create depression from one person to another. But when it's all said and done, there's a chemical issue that is going on. Whether that chemical issue is there because of an imbalance that is inherent to the body, or if it is a trigger from something we've experienced or taken on energetically, it does not matter. The first thing we need to do is try to cleanse our body of all the toxins. Toxins, we know, are not good for the body, and they weigh down and slow down our vibration and ultimately affect the chemical balances within the body. So a full body detox with a good natural detox system. I'm not going to tell you guys where to go. This is where we're going to have to do a little homework and do a little research and look for a detox system where there's nothing but organic products being used, organic natural products being used. There are many of them out there. So again, we're going to have to do a little research and find a detox system that is all natural, that will help us cleanse and get rid of the toxins within our body. The second thing is, and I know this is a controversial one right here, it is about eating meat. Now, I started out in life eating beef and pork and, things that I now know was not good for my body. When I made a decision to pull myself up out of the situation, I stopped eating beef. I stopped eating beef, then I stopped eating pork, and then everything else kind of followed suit. So if you really want to commit to this and you are dealing with depression, you're going to have to stop either eating meat altogether or greatly cut back on it. And if we are still going to eat meat, we need to again do our homework. And I'm going to explain this a little further so that you guys understand why we say eating meat is just not the best thing, not only for the physical body, but for the elevation of consciousness. When I was eating meat, I was still having spontaneous astral projection experiences here and there, but I would always find myself on the lower level. They were always dark and gloomy astral projection experiences. When I stopped eating meat and start pulling myself out of the depression, I found myself not only having spontaneous astral projections really frequently, but I noticed that my dreams were a lot clearer, more beautiful. My astral projection experiences were more along the lines of very revelatory, very beautiful, very peaceful, far from the gloomy, dark, very macabre type environment I will find myself magnetized to. Now, we know that animals, well, maybe some of us don't know. Animals feel. They're conscious beings. They're very spiritual in their own right. If an animal is in a hostile environment, if they're treated inhumanely, packed on top of one another in an unnatural state, if they're tortured and beaten and treated like trash, guess what? Those animals have feelings, and those feelings is going to go into the chemicals in their body, and it's going to go into the meat. So if the meat we're eating is imbalanced and full of stress and depression and sadness and fear, which these animals do feel and go through, if we eat it, we become one with that. This is why a lot of people have nightmares. This is because they consume meat from an animal that was tortured, that was brutalized, when it was slaughtered, no telling how much suffering and pain it went through. And when we eat that again, we become that, and it plays out in our consciousness. It affects our chemical, our biological computer, our chemical balances, and so on and so forth. No one can deny that what we eat is what we become. So I find that people who find this kind of information most offensive are those of us who are not having experiences and try to tell us that we're just imagining all these things, and we have fantastical imaginations. But how would you know if these things aren't real if you are consuming and doing the very things that we're telling you that's blocking you off from receiving and decoding and understanding and realizing how true these things are? So the most important thing in this regard is that if we are going to eat meat, then we need to do our research and homework and find out where the meat is coming from. Is the meat organic? How much chemical is pumped in the meat? How are the animals treated? Are the when the animals are killed to be eaten, are they tortured? Are they given a painless way of exiting? There are farms, thanks to the animal rights organizations and grassroots groups out there, who have put pressure on a lot of these farmers to treat these animals with dignity and respect. And when they get to a point where they want to, kill them for the meat, that they make their death painless. I actually saw an episode somewhere where I can't think of the name of the place. The meat it costs more, but they treat the animals very humanely. So if we're going to eat meat, this is what I advise. This is the lesser of two evils. I would prefer that we not eat it, but I know there are people going to eat it anyway. So if we're going to eat it, we need to be more informed about the meat and what we're choosing to become one with, so that we don't continue to lock ourselves down in consciousness. If we're going to eat meat, maybe we should consider cutting back on it and eating a brand of meat that is healthier and treat it better. I'm sorry, fam. Obviously, something went wrong with the camera. I tried to re-record this entire vlog 4 times and it's not working. It's not coming out. So I'm going to have to do the remainder of this vlog by way of audio. The most important thing is the information. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. Now, my next tip is to cut back or cut out the processed foods that are pre-packaged. These things are filled with chemicals and preservatives. And what do we say in the beginning? Whatever we eat, we become one with it. And so if we're eating and taking in chemicals and preservatives, we become one with that, and it throws off our chemical balances. When we put these things in the microwave, those microwave particles affect us in the same way. We're talking about serious toxicity. We're killing whatever little nutrients that's in it, and we're picking up more toxicity. My next tip is to drink lots and lots of alkaline water. Alkaline water can be purchased as that, but we can make our own alkaline water by getting fresh, clean water, either filtered or spring, and put a pinch of organic baking soda in it. I usually make about a gallon of fresh filtered water, and I will put about a half a teaspoon of baking soda in a pitcher of spring water, and it turns it into alkaline water. The next tip that I'm going to give is exercise. Exercise, get those healthy endorphins in the brain going. I'm not a big fan of exercising, but I cannot lie. Afterwards, I feel so much lighter on my feet. It stimulates those healthy endorphins. If you can get out and walk in the sun for at least a half an hour, 3 times a week, you are making great progress. If we can get in the gym and exercise, that will be good too. It's all about stimulating those healthy endorphins, which is, again, a biological chemical within the body that when released, it lifts us up and makes us feel balanced and light on our feet. Just really good. The next tip is a really good one. I've heard many of you guys and have heard many people who are depressed a lot talk about how depressing watching the news is, or watching certain things on television. Then I ask, why are we watching? If you know that watching the news is depressing, why are you engaging? Turn it off. Don't watch it. Those of us who are empaths, we know, especially, that we shouldn't be engaging in these things because we're going to take it on. We're going to become one with it. Do not watch or engage things that you know is going to depress you. We already know that about 90% of what is presented on the news is going to be negative, fearful, or will practically make you feel like there's nothing to live for and all hope is gone. So disengage, family. Do not watch the news. My next tip is find something that brings out the kid and creator in you. There are many ways in which we can do this. For me, tapping into the inner kid in me is hanging out and watching cartoons with my nieces and nephews. We watch DVDs of superhero movie. I just love just hanging out with them and watching cartoons. So that's the inner kid in me coming out. As in terms of my creative side, I would draw, I would write ideas for productions, I will write a song. There are different ways in which we can create, and I notice that when I'm in a creative zone, no matter what is going on around me, I disconnect and I really get into just a state of joy and excitement. I love creating. I love coming up with something and watching how people respond to it. There's something very exciting about that. So we have to find, again, what it is that would bring out that inner child in us or that creator in us. My advice is to think back when we were a child. Think like a child. Think about the things that we did when we were a child that made us laugh and feel the most joy. Tap into that. That is a great starting point. My next tip is affirmations, daily affirmations. Get in that mirror when you get out of bed and look yourself in the eye and state 3 affirmations of your choice. I'm going to list a few underneath this video description box. If you guys would like to use them, use them. Get in the mirror. Give yourself a daily affirmation when you get up in the morning, and give yourself a nightly affirmation before bed. Look yourself in the eye in the mirror. Feel it in your core. And you are, in essence, programming and commanding, willing, whatever it is that you want for yourself. Again, you are the creator, you are the programmer, you are the person who's in control of your life, your destiny. So these affirmations, it's basically you commanding what it is that you want to will for yourself. Last but not least, surround yourself with music, images, people, environment, websites, energies, information that reflect the person that you aspire to be or are. Many of us are where we would like to be inside, but we just haven't brought it to the surface. Many of us want to be a certain place, but don't know how to get there. So this tool or tip would be a great way to bring it about. Just as I've said in the past that many of us use the excuse of being in a certain environment or being raised in a certain environment, using that as a reason to stay and be like that. This tip right here is the reverse of that. We can take what we would like to see, the environment that we would like to be in or become. We can take those situations and people who are there and engage and be around that so that we can become that as well. So it works in the reverse. Now, I've given you guys these tips that if you commit and stick to, I guarantee you will notice a drastic difference. And on that note, I would like to remind us all that we are truly loved and loved beyond measure, and that the ultimate illumination will always come from within. Go inside, hold on tight, and go for what you know. Happy travels, y'all.